Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast and happy week before Christmas. Oh my gosh. I hope you are loving this time of year. I hope it is delighting you in every way possible. I have had such a great time being on the lookout for delights all month long, and they have been just joy giving to me. And it's been really fun. I hope you've been doing it too. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I've just been on the lookout for these December delights and I'm posting them on Instagram. And it's just really, really fun. One of my delights, and the delight that I will add to today, in addition to this fabulous podcast and fabulous you and our fabulous guest, I have just pulled together all of my outfits for my New Year's Eve trip to Paris and Versailles, and I'm just so excited. I'm excited about the clothes I chose, and I'm excited about the places I will wear them, and I'm excited about the women that are joining me, and I'm excited, excited, excited about the woman that I become on the other side of these trips. I just cannot say it often enough. When we say yes to ourselves, everybody wins. And I know that I am preaching to the choir here, but I am also wanting to remind you everything you want is on the other side of yes. And that yes unlocks the how. The how is not your responsibility. You don't have to figure out 47 steps down the journey what it's supposed to look like before you take the next one. Quiet your mind, take a deep breath, slow down, and just ask what is the next right step, and then take it. Take it, take it, take it. Oh, I am celebrating you. I am cheering you on. I am holding space for you. If you, again, have no idea what I'm talking about, or you don't really know where to start and it doesn't feel as easy as just taking the next step, then I highly encourage you to look at your calendar and go to my website, phineaswrighthouse.com, or click the link in the show notes and schedule yourself a solo retreat where you will have time and space to dream, to strategize, to implement all the good things. It's all inclusive. You'll be picked up from the airport. You'll be nourished appropriately and celebratorily, if that a word, in a celebratory fashion. And we will unpack these beautiful dreams and desires that are in your heart for 2025. And we will get some water and sunshine on those dreams, and they will grow some roots. And when you get back to your home, not only will you be refreshed, but you will be inspired and equipped and supported to take that next step. Yay, I'm so excited. Let's do this. Super fun. Okay, also super fun is today's guest, Trixy Castro. She is a dynamic entrepreneur. She is passionate about empowering women to excel in their business and entrepreneurial pursuits. She's had a remarkable career spanning over 2 decades. She has founded and invested in over 50 companies across diverse industries. Her journey is a testament to her determination, resilience, and unwavering belief in the power of mindset transformation. As a visionary leader, Trixie understands the unique challenges faced by women in the business world and has made it her mission to inspire and guide them towards success. Through her speaking engagements and mentorship, Trixie provides practical strategies, insights, and motivations to help women overcome obstacles, leverage their strengths, and achieve their goals. Get out your pen and paper. You are going to want to capture all of the goodness that Trixy Castro has to share with us. Please enjoy this beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Trixy, I am so looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I'm thrilled to have you.
I am so thrilled and honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's my great pleasure. So, I've told my listeners over the past few weeks, we've had really beautiful conversations with people that I am getting to know in real time with my listener. And I'm so excited that this is one of those conversations. So I would love to start with the question of how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
So I thought a lot about this question, right? And I love that you say season, because as we grow and we go through seasons, that saying yes to yourself can always change and needs to always change. And I'll tell you that historically, I've said yes to myself by saying no, right? By saying no to the noise, by saying no to things where I overcommit, by saying no to people that have a well-intended opinion, thought, or fear that they try and then put on to me or to anyone as like, hey, I'm trying to help you, but really it's don't do that, right? So historically, it's taken me a long time to learn to say yes to me by saying no to this outside stuff. That's been a big kind of challenge and mission. In today, this season, I'm learning to say yes to myself by coming out and sharing my story. And that's something that I've always put on the back burner, just building companies, helping other entrepreneurs, doing all the things, all good things, nothing negative, but I've always had this burning desire to tell my story and just provide tools, right? That young Trixie would have loved and needed. And so being able to say yes to myself to do that, which is such a huge motivation as to why I built these platforms, is like so not just exciting, but in many ways just freeing, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And I love that you've articulated that so beautifully. I have some questions about how you said no to those things. But what I really love about your yes is that sometimes we can feel like too much time has passed, that now it's too late to tell the story. Or even if you have fallen out of touch with a friend, you feel like sometimes, oh, too much time has passed. I can't reach out to them now because now it's just embarrassing. I have too many things to catch them up on, or it's been 5 years. I don't want to just come out of the blue. And so I love that you've given yourself permission to say, I didn't say it then, but I am saying it now, and I'm not making myself wrong for the order of how this whole thing is playing out, because we're all doing the best we can with the tools we have.
Right.
And it's all an experiment. So hooray, let's just keep going. But I would love to know, I most definitely want to hear all about your yes, but I have a question about your no. And you said that people that are well-meaning, well-intended, but are really operating from their own fear in giving us advice. And how did you navigate that? And the reason I'm asking for a friend, I'm totally asking for me. I am definitely in a change of seasons. I feel like this has been an era of completions, and I'm very excited for what's next. I am appreciative of all that has happened, and I'm eager for more. And I am finding a lot of opinions
Mm-hmm.
that are well-meaning, that
Mm-hmm.
are reminding me, well, probably don't speak too freely on the podcast. You might want to be a little strategic with these big dreams that you have. And what would you say? What would you say to someone who has found you in conversation just based on how you said no?
So it took me so long and I struggled with it, right? Because it's one thing to sit on this side and tell you, "Hey, listen, I finally learned this, so let me share with you." But I think the process of getting to that point is something that I needed to go through. And so that process, what that looked like is very similar to what you're going through right now. I was so excited and had so much passion to share, right? And to build and to do these great things. And in your case, it's to share and build while putting this podcast, right? And that's a
Mhm.
really big deal. And that is your heart's desire. So people will oftentimes and did oftentimes kind of like, yay, that's great, but right? And I had to take a step back and kind of consider the source. And that's so easy to say,
Mm,
but so hard to do, right? Especially as women, we're trained and conditioning ourselves every day, whether we mean to or not, to just make whoever is on the other side happy
yep,
and make them feel good about them, whether they deserve it or not, mind you, whether they
totally.
reciprocate that to us or not. We're just like, oh, you have a problem? Let me fix it, right? Oh,
Yes.
you're upset? Oh, you have a feeling? You don't know how to process that? Here, right? And so what about us? Right. So
Right.
I stopped and had to literally like stop myself and say, okay, let me consider the person. Has this person ever even done what they're giving me advice on? And that was
Mm,
really hard because I had to give myself permission to be logical in that format because being logical was okay if I wasn't like not making the other person happy. Right. And that I
right.
needed to learn that it didn't mean accepting everything they said. I could accept their intention. I could accept that they were well intended, right?
Yes.
But I couldn't accept what they were saying as the truth because it wasn't my truth. And
Mhm.
so what I realized was a lot of people would give me advice, and it was all based on a personal experience they had or didn't have, one of the two. So
Right?
it was like this, yeah. So it was one of the two things. So I'd take a step back and I would say, okay, is there any truth to that, to what they're saying? Like, can the world fall apart because I do a podcast? No. No.
Right.
Will it damage my brain or whatever the things, right? And I kind of had to break it down that way and almost look at it as like, is this advice I would give to my younger sister? And when I flipped the
Mm,
script, I was able to, without any emotion or feeling any sort of way, just like dismiss it and move on. And like, I mean, I accepted their intention as like kind and thoughtful and loving and whatever, but it didn't mean that I had to absorb what they were saying and the feedback they were giving me. And what I started to realize is the more I did that, the more it became like driving second nature,
right.
right? The less I had to stop and think about it. But it was literally retraining the way that I absorbed advice or information. And it was probably one of the most helpful things because then from there, I was able to just take a step back and start viewing problems and challenges that way without feeling like this guilt or shame of like, oh, I screwed up. I did this horrible thing. And like, there's no coming back. And it's this catastrophic thinking. And I realized, like, hey, wait a second. Is it really? Or is this kind of like a familiar feeling that I've gone back to that I maybe learned as a kid or something?
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
And I saw that in many other people that I worked with. And it was so easy to start identifying and almost like, hey, wait a second, let's take a step back. Let's work on this together. And it helped me more than it helped them, I think.
Right? That's amazing. Thank you so much for that because I feel like I can do that in so many arenas with so many
Mhm.
people that, if someone is in my DMs and telling me how they think that I should be doing something different, like, okay,
Right.
thank you. Thanks.
Right.
I don't CJ497 with a
Right. Yeah.
profile picture of a kitty cat. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fine. Thank you for that input. But when it's someone who's really trusted and that I really admire, and the advice is kind of unexpected.
Right, right.
So I really appreciate that.
Keep in mind too that like a lot of people don't realize that just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at everything. So when you give someone advice, like I always try and think of that for myself, right? Because people seem to sometimes think, well, I this person did so well over here that they're automatically an expert across the board, and that's not true.
Mm,
Right. So they may have done really well in one arena or in one segment or one line of work, but that doesn't always translate into what you're doing. Right.
right.
So I would just always take that with a grain of salt because I learned to really quickly identify and look at, okay, but are we talking apples to apples? And most of the time we weren't. So it wasn't like life advice, right? That's different. That's different when it comes to your kids and your business kid, right? Like
Right.
it's different. You tend to like, hold on because you're like, wait, I fought so hard for this.
Right. Right. Mm. Okay. So much to think about there. Thank you. I appreciate it. You can bill
Okay.
me for your time. So now I would love to hear about your yes. So you've decided to incorporate your story into this amazing work that you're doing. How is that working together? How is that integrating?
It's hard because it's not something that I can turn on or off, right? So, like by nature, I love to try and help and just coach. I'm not a business coach per se. It's just one of these things where I'm like, hey, wait a second, I've been through it. Let me show you. Let me help you avoid these pitfalls. And, I tried it this way and it worked okay, but this way and it worked great. These types of things. And I've always just done that in my real life. I'll give you an example. I've always
Mhm,
wanted to connect people
mhm,
and to create access. One of the things that was a challenge for me in business was that I didn't have access to high net worth individuals and capital markets and capital stacks. I didn't have any access. I didn't have any exposure to that. So how do you raise money, for example, in that environment? And so creating the access for myself was something that it was probably one of the greatest life lessons I've learned, but I wanted to be able to provide that to others. And I met a kid in an elevator, and I call him a kid lovingly, like 22 years old. And
sure.
this was, a couple of years ago, and he was going to pitch a group of investors. I know the investors. I was going to be in that room as one of the potential investors. And I started talking to him. I said, okay, well, let's in the elevator. I'm like, maybe we stop off on the third floor and let me just kind of give you a few tips. And he said, sure, and I said, okay. And I'm fixing his tie. And I'm like, look, whatever you do not make anything up. If you don't
Mhm,
know, just be transparent and say, you know what, I'm not 100% certain. I'll get back to you. And don't forget to get back to them, right? Because I said, because these groups, they're waiting for you to trip up because in their mind, we're thinking, hey, if you lied about this, you're going to lie about this, and it's too good to be true. Long story
right.
short, got involved, and all he needed was the right group of investors that
Mm,
weren't just going to write a check. They were going to believe in him, offer him support and almost like thought partnership, right?
sure.
He has an offer today. I can't make this up for over $650 million for his company. It wasn't
Wow.
anything I did. He had the right group of investors, the right capital. The tail wasn't wagging the dog, meaning that the money wasn't the one dictating the business. He got to actually build it. So you're talking in less than 2 years, this
Wow.
guy took his company and made it phenomenal. And he's got this like wise counsel, right? So he built his tribe, and all he needed was just the right person, the right people. And I think that resonated so much throughout my career, right? My life. And, I wasn't the one in the elevator that, did all that. I was the person trying to figure out, well, what elevator do I go on?
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so and so I think I had to go through these experiences to be able to identify that in others. And so now saying yes to myself to be able to tell my story and stories like that hopefully to be able to help the next person to say, hey, listen, when I was coming up in business, there were no podcasts I could go to. There were no yous providing, this incredible information that is truly a game changer, right? Because there's nuggets that they're going to hear on your podcast that they're like, oh, you know what? That resonates. Let me fix and tweak. And the
Right.
fixing and tweaking is so critical in every day. So
Yes.
for me to kind of get out of my comfort zone a little, because yes, I was building companies and I was head down. Literally, I live in a community where I've lived here for over 15 years. And I've been working head down so much that I have people here that are like, did you just move here? And I'm like, nope, I've been here for 15 years. And they're like, where? Because I
Wow.
didn't have time to be social, right? I was building and grinding and just everything was going back into the businesses. And then I say that because that's what it takes when you're building,
Mhm.
but there's a way to be able to share that story, right? And to be able to bring kind of others along in that journey. And that's where I'm at now. So it's taking the time to be able to say, okay, let me get out there a little bit and share with others. And there's going to be times I make mistake, and let me be transparent about that, because hopefully if someone hears my mistake, they'll avoid it, right? And it'll avoid
Right.
them having these kind of pitfalls. And so that's one way that I'm like in this journey, really exposing it and trying to show people, hey, I'm doing it too, right? It's not just this great story of like, I was here and I did these great things. It's like, no, that's great. That's wonderful, but I'm living it too. Like I'm in it with you.
Right. Right. I heard this analogy about, these things that we keep coming back to, but it's similar to a slinky. So
Hmm.
we're coming around, but we're a level higher than the last time we came around this bend. So
Right.
whether it's something that is coming up with mindset, or something that's coming up in business, or something that's coming up in relationships, we can, instead of being frustrated, why is this happening again? We can take stock. Oh, wait, I've honed my skills a little bit since the
Right.
last time I was over here, and I've
Right.
learned some things. And it can't just always be a formula of, you've built many businesses and you don't have an ABC that you just keep grinding out and
Right.
have the same results. That there are things that you've learned, things that you've implemented, new people. There are always the dynamic of all the different players, but there are these overarching principles, and you that are the things that remain, and that's why that keeps growing.
100%. And I think that just to piggyback off of that, I think when we have the ability to say, okay, I'm going to reflect on that for a minute and I'm going to sit there for 2 minutes and actually, look at what I did correctly and how I can capitalize on that and improve upon that. It's a very different story. I was giving a talk a couple of years ago, and I was in a room full of men and women. These are professional. These are seasoned people that have built and sold a company. Okay. So they're not rookies. So we're going through it, and I'm old school. I like to write things down, something about that pen
Same.
and paper. And I
Agreed.
said, okay, here's one sheet of paper. On this one side, tell me everything that you made a mistake on in business that you wish you could prevent for others, and that you could then go through and say, I'm not going to do that again. Literally, please give us more time, more paper, more paper, more time. Okay. On
Mm.
the other side, tell me all the things you did right. Crickets. I mean, most people had two, maybe three things that they wrote down: building my company, selling my company. That was pretty much it. It was
Mhm.
insane, insane. And I thought,
Wow.
oh my gosh, I needed a minute, right? And I thought,
Right.
why are we so hard on ourselves? Why are we
Mhm.
so critical of ourselves? I know it's good to reflect. I know it's good to be able to say, hey, I learned from this, I can do this, and what have you, but not beat ourselves like that, right? So
Mhm.
I thought, I have to take my story. I have to be able to say, hey, listen, guys, stop for a second. You are the business. You have put time and money and blood and sweat and tears into
Mhm.
this. It's critical that you actually acknowledge that you did something right, that you did a good job. And it's not just building a company and selling it. What about all the things in between that? What about all the sleepless nights? What about all the times that nobody is coming in and telling you good job, patting you on the back? You're
Right.
having to figure it out, right? But I thought, God, isn't that so telling? Like, how do we change that? So
Mm,
it was a defining moment for me. It really was, because I thought, you know what? We can do all the talks in the world, but if we can't believe in ourselves for that minute, for that moment, to be able to say, here are 5 things that I did well, and I'm going to focus on those 5 things, right? And not just generic, I'm a good mom, I'm a good, no, really focus in on that. We're limiting ourselves. And would we do that to our kids?
no,
No.
no.
So why do we do it to ourselves? And as women, we are just like trained this way. So I've been on
Right.
like, mission to say, no, 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 let's change this. Let's change the tapes in our head.
Right. So
Yeah.
how can we do that? I feel like there has been an increase in my awareness of people using the word perfect
Hmm.
and, always like, well, it's not perfect, but this, that, and the other thing. And I'm thinking, what? And have been asking, when was the last time that you actually experienced perfect?
Right.
And sometimes it's never like, okay, well, then how do you know this wasn't it? I just think we're kind of setting ourselves up to not disappoint somebody when the expectation is not perfection either. It's just this really fascinating concept to me because it's reminding me of high school and the
Hmm.
word popular, which felt like one of the top 5 used words in my high
Right.
school, probably by me, and post high school, never used that word ever again. And I just think it's really interesting. I feel like perfect is playing out in a similar way. Are you finding that that's why people, if they didn't do something perfect, they can't even say that something was good?
100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that there's this like unspoken, unrealistic, you have to do this in this way, like you're saying, popularity. That's such a good thing. I hadn't even thought of that because I'm a grown up now,
Right.
right?
Right.
But it was so important in middle school and high school, right?
Mhm.
Like your friends, and I couldn't tell you how important it was because I don't even remember thinking that way. But you're absolutely right. And it's a season, but it's this unspoken, like crazy unattainable thing. And for what? To your point, like, do we even know that that's what it looks like? And being able to just look at it almost like Legos, right? You're trying to build something and you're one on top of the other and you're just working at it a little every day.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. And I think that certain people that are in certain lines of work can see that, right? You have an artist that they express themselves through their art. You have business owners that express themselves through their business, but yet won't allow themselves to think that way. You have people that are working so hard in their career path and whatever that looks like and are constantly trying to improve themselves, but it doesn't need to be by beating ourselves up, right? And so
Right.
improving myself as an artist doesn't look like improving myself as a business person, right? And why is that? They're two exactly same passions, right? There's still something that you're
Exactly.
building, but I think we put these unspoken, unrealistic, like barometers, if you will, that are just like, to your point, like why? And I think a lot of that is we challenge that thinking. We don't
Mhm.
really know where it came from, and we don't really understand. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. It's just ways that we've conditioned ourselves or things that
Yeah.
we've heard, and we've never really stopped to challenge it.
Right. I think it's fascinating. We were talking a little bit before we hit record. You have 2 young boys. I have a young
Yes.
daughter, and it's interesting because, they come home with ideas
Hmm.
and they're surprising. I am surprised sometimes by what Amelia says because I think, well, you didn't hear that from me. Or it's just, of course, they're sponges and they're getting all this information. But she has started wearing makeup. She is a fashion designer.
Oh,
And
I love it.
yes, she's amazing. And she's been sketching since she was 4, and she's been sewing for about a year now. And she's a little bit frustrated that her sewing skills don't match her sketching skills, but
Uh-huh.
she's, 6 years behind. But she is also wearing makeup and practicing that all the time as well. And she has a very small freckle on the tip of her nose. And she has started asking me to purchase concealer.
Mm,
And I asked why. I was like, you're 10. Like, your skin is so beautiful. There's nothing to conceal. I don't want you
right.
to, end up with something to conceal because you put all this stuff on your face. And she told me, I don't like my freckle. And
Mm,
I know, I was so sad. I was like,
mm,
I love your freckle. It's how I know it's you. Otherwise, it's going to look like everybody else's nose. And so I'm I'm really treading intentionally there because I
mhm.
want to be sensitive. And I know that I'm sure my mom would have said something like that to me, and I would have rolled my eyes about how she doesn't understand. And but it's really fascinating that we do live in a culture, even when you are consciously parenting
Mhm,
and providing beautiful, expansive space for your kids, they are still in the soup that is all around us and wanting this thing to be perfect, even when
mhm.
it's her face.
And, oh, there's so much on that one, right? Like, I just want to commend you. What an amazing, like, mom moment that
Mhm.
you created. Like, oh my gosh, can you imagine if we all had been spoken to that way, right, by our moms? Like, we'd have a whole different culture.
It helps parenting in your mid 50s
Yeah.
because I actually know things now.
Yeah,
So,
no, but
yeah.
seriously, kudos to you on that one. That
Thank
was
you.
I just learned a lot on that one.
Hmm.
And second, like, I love that she is able to talk to you. And she's able to tell you her true feelings because there's no fear of like, oh, I might say the wrong thing. It's
Mhm.
literally, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. This is why I'm doing this. Right. So if we could capture that in a bottle, right. And if we could allow ourselves to be able to be 10 again and to speak like that and to feel comfortable like that in talking about it, because our job is then to help her feel comfortable in her own skin, right? And
Right.
so like that's always been something important to me, to be a female role model that is like, hey, you can do it all, right? You can do it and you can still keep your femininity. And I love glam. And if I could do glam every day, I'd have glam every day, right? Even if I'm not going anywhere. And
Right.
in my yoga pants, I'd still have it. And so, like, that she can identify with how she feels and what she likes. And it's not a bad thing. And she can be the fashion designer and she can sketch and she's going to tie it all together that works for her. But that's because of you, right? Because
Mm.
she has this passion and you're encouraging it and you're fostering it and you're helping guide her. You're not telling her you have to do it this way, do it this. You're helping her find her way and you're just kind of clearing that path. And I think so much of that is, if we can learn as women to do that to ourselves and for ourselves, clear our
Mhm.
own path and allow ourselves to be vulnerable like that, to be able to say, hey, listen, I'm a little bit not liking of this, or I'm a little bit conscious of this. And like, usually it's like, no, that's a bad thing. Don't look at
Right.
it that way. And, da, 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 da. And that just makes you do this, right? Protect,
Exactly.
yourself rather than be able to like lean into it.
Thank you. Thank you. I receive all of that. You have, I think, shame
Right.
for feeling the frustration, and
Right.
then shame for expressing your frustration at your own appearance because the way someone said, "Oh no, everyone is beautiful. You just have to love your body." And I appreciate that in context, but it's like someone saying, "You just need to learn French."
Right.
Like, well, yes, that is true. And I can't just make a decision and be fluent. I
Right.
need some tools
Right.
to, work through this conditioning. And
Mhm.
we want to love our bodies and we want to look good in our skin and in our clothes. And I am very physical because I'm a farmer, but I am also 56 years old and I don't look the way I did when I was 26. And
Mhm.
I feel myself frustrated on the inside, but I'm really mindful to not say anything
Mhm.
out loud because Amelia. So
Mhm.
it's important to me. But there is still, and not even just with physicality, but how would you suggest like that we're reframing these thoughts? We've made a decision, we're putting on a new mindset, we're living in this new way, but there's a bit of unlearning to
Mhm.
do in that process as
Mhm.
well.
So I think back to, like you mentioned, I have two little boys, right? I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, two very critical ages, in my opinion, because they're
Mhm.
still sponges. And I have the responsibility to help them create their own canvas of life and their own self-esteem and all these things, right? And my 6-year-old asks me all the tough questions. Well, why
Mm,
is this and why is that? And all these really deep, thoughtful questions. And I think about that and I think that's interesting how his little mind works, right? The 4-year-old tells me how the world works. Okay. So the 6-year-old is like trying to solve for world peace, right? And the 4-year-old is telling me, no, this is how it's done. This is how you do it. And this is how the world works. So two very different personalities, but two very genuine little hearts, right? And so when
mhm.
I think about that, where did we lose that? We lost that along the way because we listened to all of this outside noise and we allowed that to shape our thinking and our view of ourselves. And so I think if we can go back to that, like to that, and realize, okay, just like I learned it then, I
Yeah.
can unlearn it now because now I'm an adult and I can really view things for what they are. And if I'm capable of viewing them here for what they are, if I can translate that into me and view it how I am, right? Then I'm giving myself the ability and the permission to be able to do it. And so, one of the things that has worked for me is to really stop and focus on the good. And it doesn't mean of myself, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm ignoring the areas I need to improve on, not at all. It's just when I look in the mirror, talking about, physicality, I'm going to focus on the two or three things that I like. So then you start to see that. You
Yeah.
train yourself to see that in
Mhm.
business. You start to see yourself this way. And so I think kind of conditioning to view it a little bit different with something that you're looking at every day is a
Yeah.
really good thing, right? It's like putting the water bottle right in front. If I have it there, I'm going to grab it. If I,
Right.
it's whatever is in front of me. That's what I'm seeing. That's what it, like subliminal messaging I'm doing. And I think it's a little bit of that has helped a lot with me because I can be as intentional as I want, which is great. But then when the stress comes, if I haven't done it enough times, it's not like my fallback. My fallback
Right.
becomes what the tapes were of the past, right? So it's like
Right.
creating that new way of thinking. But I'm living proof that you can do it, right? I'm living proof that if you are able to stop and be self-aware and say, I'm going to look at this without coming at it with shame and guilt and all of these negative feelings that like it's kind of like your analogy of popular. Like, where did that
Right.
come from? Right. What do I
Right.
have to be ashamed of? Like, and focus on the goodness and like how we talk to our kids versus how we talk
Yes.
to ourselves, right? Or how we talk to a person in business. It's so different than how we talk to ourselves. And really, why? We would never talk to others that way, right? We wouldn't want them
Correct.
to feel that way. And so when we can stop and look at that and say, okay, let me like sit on that one for a second, noodle that
Right.
for a second, then I think we can start bringing about the positive changes that we can create internally. And again, I go back to writing it down. Something about the journaling and writing it down
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
registers in our brain. I love to type and do all that, but the writing down thing really
Yeah.
works for me.
I agree. I interviewed a woman a few weeks ago, Stephanie Affinito, and she is a bookologist and she loves reading and journaling. And she talks about just the stress relieving
Mm-hmm.
properties
Mm-hmm.
of journaling just 5 minutes a
Mm-hmm.
day
Right.
can
Oh, yeah.
it has such a beautiful effect on you. So I have a morning practice that includes journaling and it has completely changed my life. Are there some practices that you are committed to, that you've been doing, that have helped you not only in your personal life, but as you are building all of these businesses and selling them and helping other people? Like, how how are you doing all of that?
So yes, I'm a big believer in the journaling, and nobody has time, or at least I don't have time to sit for an hour a day, right? But one of the things that I do is definitely do that daily, even if it's 2 or 3 minutes. That,
Mhm.
like, just make the bar something attainable, right? But I actually start and I look at, okay, a year goal, the year things are great. Then you break it down quarterly, monthly, right? Weekly. But I stick to very disciplined weekly, where I'm looking at, okay, what is this month going to look like? What is this week going to look like? And let me almost like calendar and plan. But I look at the goals and what I wanted to set out to accomplish in that quarter. And then when I have the opportunity to accomplish these things, right? And I've created that for myself, I make myself journal how that feels, because it's a
Mm,
good feeling. Otherwise, it just becomes a to-do list, right?
right.
And so I don't want to lose the journaling from, like, hey, all of the good things and just become another to-do list. I have post-it notes for that, right? Like, I could
Right.
do that separate. And so I think there's something that has helped about being able to reflect on, oh, okay, I was able to accomplish that in an easier manner because I did this, this, and this. And I've kind of learned from that. And then talking to some people about it and say, hey, you know what? This is something that I just did and it worked. And like then getting their feedback and some of the things that have worked with them. But I think being comfortable to allow yourself to do that and almost like create your routine, right? So one of the things that has helped me is every day trying to find something where I am physical, meaning right now I'm into hot yoga. So I try and do that, times a week, or a walk or whatever, but finding that hour or whatever the time frame is for me is really important, because then the rest of my day is about doing and giving and go, go,
Mhm.
go, go, go. But that time in the morning is so
Yeah.
critical for me. And let's say I only have an hour, I might do the 45-minute physical thing, the 5-minute journaling, the centering myself, and the being grateful and the gratitude. That is
Mhm.
real, because then you can go into your day set right, rather
Yeah.
than who is yelling and screaming and barking the loudest, right? And then
Right.
running to that. You don't deviate. And as I look at it quarterly and as I look at it monthly, whatever the 5 goals are, let's just say the 5 top things, if it's not going to help us accomplish that, it needs to be put on the back burner. It needs to be on
Mm.
the like pending things, right?
Yeah.
Because so often my time was almost like being robbed because somebody needed something. Well, that didn't help the mission. And this mission wasn't about Trixy Castro. This mission was far greater, to build these companies that were changing industries and creating housing and all of these amazing things. So who am I to say, oh, somebody over here and they're yelling is more important than all of these families that are going to be impacted? And when I could take a step back and realize that this was something far greater than just myself, this was something
Mm.
that was really valuable, and allowing someone else's drama and issue to
Right.
deviate us from that and myself as being the leader, that was not the best and most efficient use of my time or my leadership. So I
Mm.
was able to take a step back, but I wouldn't have done that if I didn't force myself to have that time to reflect.
Right. Absolutely. My morning practice is completely non-negotiable, and I am not in the trenches like you are. So I can see how, of course, how amazing that is for anybody, but to have that, you just have access to your higher self
Right.
because you've held space. And I love the idea of sharing the win, and sharing even when it's a daily win, it's crossing off a to-do list, but that you implemented some sort of system. And in the telling somebody else about that, it has so many ripple effects. Number one, thoughts grow as they're shared. So it reinforces it to you that this is a great feeling and that this thing got accomplished in either a new way or a proven way. It, of course, shares that methodology with the people that you're celebrating with. And it also allows them to celebrate their wins and to know that it feels good to be a part of that process. So
Mhm.
I really love that. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. No, it's just, these are just little things that have helped me that I've learned along the way because, trial and error.
Right?
You
So
know,
what are you working on now, and what do you want people to know?
I've got a ton of things I'm working on. I'm always a lender. I started as a lender, always be a lender. So I have a, lending company where we lend on all things for real estate investment. So whether it's a
Oh,
bridge loan, a construction loan, a portfolio, if someone owns a rental property or 200 rental properties, we got it. So anything that's a real estate investment, we're in the lender on that. So we love it. That's amazing. I will always have that going on, right? And then I've got all sorts of other entrepreneurs that I've teamed up with that I'm working on. I've got one company. So that company is called TRX. I've got another one where it's Verify, and that one is new to me. It's a new industry. I teamed up with a gentleman and his wife out of Miami, and he comes from the merchant services world. So he sees all of these fees and all of these things that are charged, and he created with machine learning all of these algorithms and the ability to read these reports. So any
mm,
entrepreneur, any business owner that receives payment in the form of a credit card gets a statement. That statement is analyzed. You get back like, okay, here's what you're being charged, and
mm-hmm.
you should be being charged A, B, and C. We can get that done for you. So if the person decides, yes, I'd like to save that money, they don't have to pick up the phone. They don't have to change providers. They don't have to change equipment. They simply allow this company to negotiate, get that down. And we're seeing savings anywhere from 20 to 40%. So it's found money.
Wow,
So yeah,
that's
there's not a
amazing.
fee. There's not a fee to analyze it. It's just, hey, listen, if you decide to do it and we save you the money, we'll take a fee from that because if we earned
Sure.
it, then pay us. If not, no problem. But I've seen good and bad, right? I've
Right.
seen doctors, dentists, surgeons, charities, churches, restaurant owners, anyone that's busy being charged
Mm.
35, 40% more than industry average. And
Mm.
I mean, it's mind blowing, right? So
And you
just
just don't know what you don't know.
you don't know, and who has time. And I mean,
Right.
like it's just a lot. So being able to bring awareness to a business owner so they can decide for themselves, whatever they decide is fine, but at least you have the facts, right? So
Right.
that's been really neat because I've never had a business where I'm like, here you go, the same thing you're doing, just keep more money in your pocket, right? And so that's been really fun. I'm working with another group called Roots, where they created a reggae offering in real estate investment. And this means anyone with $100 or more can invest in real estate and have the exact same
Oh.
opportunity as people that are extremely seasoned and been doing it for 20 years. So it's always been for me a passion on a way that we can democratize real estate investment. So someone like my mom,
Mm.
for example, she's not ever going to go and fix up a house and sell it. That's just not her wheelhouse, but she could be making the double digit interest rate returns, right? That someone who is doing that. So that's been really fun. So just passion projects like that, always around trying to create regional jobs, create housing, create economic opportunities, upward mobility, put money in entrepreneurs' pockets. Everything to help like that is just my wheelhouse. So it's new to me now. People can kind of look on my website. It's all still growing, right?
Right.
TrixyCastro.com, and putting everything on there in ways that we can try and be of help is what I'm trying to do.
I love that so much. Are you doing anything, again, I'm asking for a friend now, that is melding both of those things? So real estate investment for entrepreneurial purposes.
Yep. Yep. All of that is on there. But yes, that is exactly what we're doing. Right. And then as that grows, we build tech around that, make that easier for people. Right. But we're like sharing the journey alongside that. But yeah, I think there's incredible opportunities that we're seeing in real estate. And I think that it's
Mhm.
bringing those opportunities to light for
Right.
people so that they have the facts and they can make these decisions for themselves. And for me, it doesn't mean I have to build every single company. I can team up,
Right.
right? And so that's new to me too, right? Because I've always been the person building, 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 but it's so nice to be able to support other people's passions that align with mine. And we just have larger reach.
Right. And then you're able to connect people,
Right.
which is so
Right.
beautiful because
Hmm.
I mean, I have really big dreams, and my really big dreams involve properties. And I know that there are people that have money that would like to invest in people, but they don't have ideas.
Right.
And it's just so fun to put those two things
Together.
together,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
what you're talking about. I have a friend who has a podcast that's all about real estate
Mhm.
investing with a nonprofit bend to it. And
Mhm.
I would love to connect you to be on her
Thank you.
podcast as
I would
well.
love that.
And so
Thank
it's
you.
just so fun the longer that we are here on this planet and the more things we do and the more people we meet and then the connections that we get to be a part of in putting things together, it's just life-giving.
Yeah.
And I'm clearly so enthusiastic about that because it really is so fun.
Yeah.
And it cost my whole life experience to know about her and know about you and know about this opportunity, but it feels so fun and easy just to connect dots.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think it's a secret win for everybody. I love that for sure. There's something magical about it. So no, I love that.
Right. And it's a double blessing
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you've got two ingredients that need each other for this recipe to work. And they're both so excited that they found each other and so excited that you were the chef that put them together.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, it's
Absolutely.
so good. I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time,
you.
Trixie. Tell everyone where they can find and follow you. And of course, we'll link everything in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. My website is trixycastro.com. They can follow me on social. I'm new to that, so I think I have, like 20 posts, but we're getting there. So,
Awesome.
also Trixie Castro just to keep it easy, but I'm here to serve to help in any way possible, and I hope that
Mm,
my journey could be helpful and inspiring to someone else.
it already is.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.